So welcome to another Wargame review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we're taking a look at a 2019 game from GMT, and it is called The Last 100 Yards. And it is a tactical game. I guess you would say it's platoon level.
It is platoon level. It's a little bigger than squad. Yep.
But you count as the squads and sections, where they're organized into platoons.
Yeah.
And you have other supporting weapons. But it feels very tactical in nature. Mm-hmm. You're moving, doing fire attacks, assaulting positions, doing combined operations and things like that.
And it's combined arms. There are tanks and vehicles and other cool stuff.
Mortars, snipers, all that kind of stuff. So why does the world need another platoon/tactical level game is the question.
I don't know that we do need another one, but this one definitely has a place at the table.
But I'm glad we have it. So
yeah. Because tactical is really kind of, there's a lot of great series.
Yes.
Lock and Load Tactical, Combat Commander,
ASL.
I mean, there's dozens, and this is a really good one.
Yes.
I think it definitely deserves a seat at a table in that discussion.
And it does that because this offers some differences from other games. It stands on its own 2 feet because it's not a card-driven combat game. Mm-hmm. It's not an I go, you go type game necessarily. Mm-hmm. It's not a chip draw game. It has its own initiative system, which is fairly simple, but
very important.
Yes,
very important.
But the way that the game kind of stands out is that it tracks kind of time.
Yes,
literally the minutes it takes you to conduct your operations, and your victory conditions are typically based on how long did it take you, how much, and in addition to how many casualties did you take,
or did you inflict,
and did you meet the criterions that you were supposed to.
So that is a very new concept. I don't know that we've played a lot of games that have that kind of thing, but it was really interesting because it had you thinking from the get-go about your casualties and the time. Because when you made that first roll, I think you rolled very highly.
Yep, I rolled 10.
And you got like 5 minutes added. And I thought to myself, dang, we're literally 1/8 of the way for the victory condition that I needed for the game in one roll. And that was you had to think about those things from the get-go.
And there are games where it's I don't necessarily know how many turns I have.
Right.
This game, it's not turn-based in that sense. You're not like, this is a 7-turn
8
scenario.
rounds,
You might have a 46-point victory limit, and that is a function of 46 minutes, plus or minus any casualties you might have. But again, because the time is, you roll a dice, and it's a range of, you might add anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes to the track. If you roll poorly, the time expires because you take longer doing the stuff.
You rolled poorly quite a bit.
Yes.
Actually.
But it's so neat having your time and your casualties, your battlefield management, tied into your actual victory conditions. Did I take the church and the other 5 buildings? Some games, you take those, doesn't matter how you did it, you did it.
Yeah.
In this, there's very much Pyrrhic victories, and you'll draw or lose if you lose too many guys doing it.
So it's almost like a flowchart. It's like the first step is, did you meet the minimum conditions? For you, it was 5 buildings plus the church.
Yes.
And you said, nope, I didn't do that. Or, yes, I did, but then you go to the time and the casualties, and it's just really interesting.
Did I do it fast enough?
Yeah.
Did I do it without incurring enough losses?
And I think that's the way you really should analyze that. It's how much time did it take, allowing for reinforcements or artillery to come in, and
not being aggressive enough.
Right. And how many people did I lose?
Yes.
Morale is affected by losses of units, and nobody likes to lose companies or platoons or squads. So
if you're slow taking your objective and you incur heavy losses, doesn't matter if you took it. The up aboves are going to be annoyed at you.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was just thinking. The up aboves really represent the time, I would think. The guys in command. And we played another game like that early, maybe it was last year, the one from Legion, where you had to petition the commander like Churchill.
Oh, what was that?
Or you got negatives.
Oh,
Nemesis 44.
Oh, yeah, Burma 1944.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
but it's kind of that abstraction of time. you're either making your superiors happy. Now, there's no function of that in the game.
It's just your victory.
But it's there.
Level, yeah.
I just thought that was we used the word clever.
Yes.
When we were playing, that's a clever way to wrap that all up.
And it made me quite literally approach this game in a different way I would normally approach tactical type games. Normally, I'm a particularly conservative player.
You are.
And this one, you almost can't afford to be. Or you have to be very opportune about when you are.
Yeah.
Because it rewards aggression.
Mm-hmm.
If you do it quickly, and you can do it without any losses, you will win every time, right? So,
would you have felt that same way had your rolls for the time been lower? Like if you'd rolled 1, 2, or 3, adding only 2 or 3 minutes might have changed your mind, right?
Yes and no. It just that means I can afford myself a little bit more time.
Just a little more
maybe
time.
Get in there and do a thing. But
you did more assaults in this game than I think I've ever seen you do, and I still did. I did too,
but
as well.
Getting in and doing the stuff and getting stuck in and doing it. That's to me is what tactical games should be about.
Yeah.
So many games, I'm sat there like, oh, I'm going to feint over here and then do a thing over here. And at larger scale games, that works really well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to send this company over here to distract you over to this town. It makes a bit more sense. Whereas in a tactical level, let's get into the firefight and let's shoot each other.
Yeah.
And I know that something you tell me about games all the time is like, why don't they just start us in the middle? Why do I have to cross half the map?
Why do I have to walk half the map? Yeah.
And this one, because you are considering time, you will move forward.
That's your only choice,
right?
Really. What are you going to do? Hang out in the back row?
Just watching your victory go away, and it's such a different feeling, and it makes it very enjoyable, very different type of game.
Well, and we're not going to compare this game to some other games that we love, like Combat Commander, but I did want to compare one element. We talked about the sudden death roll in Combat Commander. That is very tense, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh crap, game can end. Oh, I didn't roll high enough, or I didn't pull a high enough card. I'm still in the fight. This felt like that almost the whole time.
Yes.
At least
for the second half of it.
Right. I felt like once we got over the first 6 or so moves where we were kind of trading blows here and there, and then you start to realize, oh crap, I'm going to have to do something. It started feeling really tense because of the parameters, not only the time, but the loss levels that were given.
Yeah, the casualty differentials also contributes to that, because I'm thinking, oh crap, I got to do this and I got to go as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't
units.
Take one more casualty.
Yeah.
And so both of us are like, ugh!
Yeah.
And it just creates a really cool feeling in the game.
Very tense and demanding dynamic, I thought.
But it's very rewarding and it's very fun to play with.
So back to Combat Commander, because that's one we love. I love Combat Commander. I think you do as well. How did this compare to Combat Commander? Did you feel like it has... I mean, obviously it has the basic tactical elements, but the combat system of this was very different.
This is frankly entirely different.
Yeah, it's like almost a paradigm shift in the way you think about tactical games.
Yeah.
You don't... Units firing from the same stack, you don't do that.
Yes.
You're like, oh, I'm going to pick my highest guy, he's going to fire, and then the other dudes in the line add to that. That's not the way it works.
And so many games do that.
They all do that.
You group them together with the commander, and they all fire, and they add all these values, and you're like, yes, I got a good attack, let's roll it.
This turns into number of attacks.
Yes.
So if you have a stack with 2 or 3 guys, I think your stacking limit is... Well, it's crazy because you can have like one of every type.
Yeah.
But you can't have a certain... I don't think you can have more than 4 combat units, steps, or combat steps.
I think it's 3 combat units.
So you're going to have 2 or 3 units in a stack, and rather than adding their fire together...
Yeah, they fire
they're all going to be firing differently, placing their own modification on that die roll, and then you're going to roll 3 10-siders and hope you roll... at this one at a -10, more often than not, you need a 7 to hit. Wouldn't you say that's a fair 6 to a 7?
Yeah, but you need to exceed. Usually it's a 7 or more you need to
so if you need a 7, you got to roll 9.
Yeah, if you got these
-2.
And that's it's just interesting to have it played out differently.
Yeah.
So many games, add the values, roll 1 die, did I make it? Yes or no?
Because I caught myself early in the game thinking, oh, I got to get I got to get a guy here and here and here so they can add. And then I'm like, no, Grant, you don't do that in this game. So then I brought them back together.
Yes.
Because it made more sense from an assault perspective and a rally perspective because I only had one leader.
Yes.
Just it really is shifting that paradigm, I think, in the tactical game. And I like that.
The more units you have, the more dice you roll.
Yeah.
Your odds will not improve from the values and modifiers, but they'll improve from having more dice.
Yeah.
So it's very different how that works. And the other thing that does, so when I do a fire attack, I put out this little kind of green marker.
We'll show you here in a minute.
And, that's the attack that we're going to do later on. All the attacks are resolved in one phase later on.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
So you move after you've gone, because it's an initiative-based thing where you go and then I get to go and then you activate something else. It's like you fire on me and then I move and those markers come with me.
Yes.
Which was kind of an interesting concept.
Yeah, so you're getting shot on the way. And you're like, okay, that's fair.
It's interesting.
But this is one of the few games where if you have that marker on you, so if you shot me first, and I've got that marker on me, when I shoot, my fire is going to be worse because I'm being suppressed.
Which I thought was fantastic.
It was such a very simple but very clever way to do suppressing fire.
And it doesn't matter if you have only one marker or 4 markers on you. You're suppressed to the same level. It's -1, which I thought was also good because in the end, this has to be a game.
Yes.
We say that a lot. It has to have some potential or possibility to make a roll.
Yes.
If you had 4 markers on you and you were -4 or -5, you're never going to hit.
Yeah, it maxes out at -4 and +4.
Right.
With a -4, you're only going to hit the worst possible units on the map anyway.
You're going to have to roll
a 10.
Roll a 10, and then you're going to hit the worst units on the map.
But the reality is most of your attacks are anywhere from 1 to -2 is what I felt. Most of them fell within that range.
I think my best attack was a +2, and that was with my 30 cal MG team. When you were moving within 2 space, so it added a whole bunch of modifiers, and I was +2, and I think I killed your guy.
Yeah, you did a casualty to him.
That doesn't happen often. So the other thing we talked about, and I still am not sure. I'd like to play a couple more times to get a better feel. I feel like dice are really important in this one, meaning your dice rolls.
Yes.
Not so much your modifiers. I mean, you got to worry about modifiers, but it's not going to change it that much.
You want to get the best modifiers possible, but if the enemy's in good cover, a lot of the times your best rolls possible is still not going to be positives. They're going to be
you're going to need 8, 9, and 10 to hit. And basically on a 10-sider.
And that's where it comes in. Instead of rolling 1 die that you would in every other game, you have to get 4 or 5 guys with that shot.
On that same target.
And roll 4 dice hoping for 1, 9, or 10.
1, 9, or 10, yeah.
And so that, it makes you think a little bit differently about it. And the combat can be pretty difficult. It can be hard to hit, but when you do hit, it can be debilitating.
Yeah.
When you get disrupted, you flip over and you can't attack anymore.
Well, your combat value kind of goes away.
Yeah, you can rally.
You can still move and you can rally. You can assault, but your assault value is
you can't assault. You can be assaulted.
Be assaulted. It's just it's interesting. So there are a lot of different elements there.
Yes.
That I think have changed the way I'm now going to think about tactical games.
Yeah,
when we play this.
It's a very, very cool game, and it's people were like, "Oh, it's totally different from any other tactical game you've played. You have to unlearn what you've learned."
I don't know that that's the case, but
you
just need to think about it differently.
That kind of stuff kind of worried me a little bit.
It did
when
me
I was reading the rules.
It did me too.
I was like, "Is it gonna be that bad?"
Yeah,
it was not.
It was not that bad.
The rule book is not daunting. I think it's only 25, 30 pages, maybe. Where did I do it? I forget.
It's somewhere. But it's right here.
How many pages is it? It's not that big. It's really, those are optional rules at the back. It's
25.
And do your own missions, no one cares. It's 25 pages.
Yeah.
For a tactical war game, let alone a war game.
That's pretty good.
That's really good.
And actually, these player aids are very good.
Yes.
They have the kind of the CRTs and how things are modified.
It's pretty much everything.
Yeah, and then they have how to do things, how to do assaults, how to do vehicle destructions.
And they include, there's 2 big bifold play aids, and they include copies for both players as well.
Yeah, so both players had these, which was nice.
The sequence of play is on this play aid card, which has the casualty track and the time track and all that stuff. So you read the rules, and you can play it mostly with the play aids.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It was much easier to pick up than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I was, that was my own kind of hesitation. But yeah, it's not a massively complex game, which is also very nice. You can jump into this fairly easily as well.
I would think that as long as you're familiar with tactical concepts, you can pick this up pretty quickly.
Yeah, and then you start, there's 12 scenarios.
Yeah.
Some of them are one mappers, some of them are three mappers.
Yeah, there was one that was a 3 map, yeah.
There's rules to do your own, make your own missions, make your own stuff. And then you start throwing in tanks and APCs, things like that, where
vehicles,
you're like driving up, and then you unload your guys, then they assault, or like, you've got riders on the back of the Stoke 3, and you just drive into the building and jump out.
Yeah.
Just all the fun stuff.
Yeah, and we love assaults. We always love, I love having smoke, and the scenario we played today didn't have any smoke.
Yes.
Or artillery that you could call in. Yeah, I always like those elements because
yeah, you can call in mortar fire in a lot of the scenarios, and it's off board, and it just comes in, later on after you call it.
Heroes was a cool thing. And Heroes is a little different than Heroes in other games.
Yes. So, like, Heroes in Combat Commander, you're like, woo, this guy's now, totally dope. But in this one, it's not that you become a hero, it's that you might do something heroic.
Heroic, yeah.
Which is...
That's a good way of putting it. Because it's temporary.
Yeah, it's temporary, and it's, if you're wounded, or if you're kind of like, what is it? Disrupted. On your kind of rally check to recover, if you roll a 10...
Which I did twice, by the way.
You flip over, you become heroic... So your cohesion check becomes an 8, which is awesome. But you then have to go and earn your Medal of Honor and dive into the closest enemy position and attack them. It's pretty funny.
It said move to the nearest occupied hex. What if that nearest occupied hex is outside your range of movement?
So
I don't remember because I was right next to you.
You have to have an enemy within 5 hexes, I believe,
to become
a hero. And if it's not,
that was what the qualifier was.
You just messed up your roll, and you're still disrupted.
Yeah.
And so then you have to move towards that.
Yeah.
As far as you can.
So you move as far as you can, and then you can ready yourself for next round.
If you don't make it, you're out in the open. You might get gunned down. So
and the hero condition continues as long as
until you get disrupted again. Or until
you clear out
that gets cleared out, basically.
Yeah. So that was an interesting element. I'm glad it came up the way it did because it made for a fun and interactive. Because you had assaulted me and pushed me back, and I rolled 2 10s on rally checks, which is ridiculous. That was fun. I liked that part of it. I also liked the random event table. When on your activation roll?
Or the initiative roll, if you roll a 10.
If you roll a 10, you get to roll on that table. That was interesting.
And it doesn't come up much.
No, it happened twice.
Yes.
You got a good one where you got a medic and got a guy to come back in.
Yes, which was very nice.
And mine, I think I lost my...
you lost
your activations.
You lost the initiative.
In descent, which killed me. But...
that's and it's the elements like that and the heroism where it's just it reminds you you're playing a game. Sometimes we get into these and it's like but this one you're just like it's just a game. It's just fun. Some crazy things happen. Some of them are pretty swingy. Like I get a guy back who you'd spent a long time killing,
and it moved.
Back.
That was devastating. But ultimately, it didn't kill me because I still won the scenario. But it. Man, I was like, I killed that guy after like 5 rounds of shooting him. So
that's it's stuff like that keeps it a fun and enjoyable game as well. And it just reminds you like, oh yeah, this random thing happened. It's a game.
It's a game.
It's okay.
It's fun.
Like I'm just doing my best to try and do this thing. Yeah. But it's a really fun game and surprisingly easy to learn. Too, I will say that. There is a really good playbook as well. The playbook has really extended examples of basically everything, every maneuver that you can do. So there's no reason that you shouldn't know what you're doing just from the rules alone. They've done a really good job with that.
Well, in those playbooks, I always like to set them up and you just play it. You just play it on the board the way it's written, and you'll learn from that.
Yes,
it teaches you how to do things.
Yes, but what I'll do is I'll show you at least a little bit of the board and how some of it works, and we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts. So here's a look at the map, and this is just a kind of a one map. This one map card. If you look at the unboxing, I kind of went through. All the scenarios are printed on different cards. So this is, mission 1, one map. Mission 2 is one map. 3 and 4, also one map. So there's 12 scenarios. Some of them get kind of 2, 3 map as they get big. Some of them are long, some of them are wide, some of them just kind of 2 maps together for something a bit more ASL or Combat Commander in size. This is obviously a very small, kind of introductory mission. So the important thing to notice is, here's the map board, here's all your tactical stuff, your units that you can move around. Now, you have this kind of play aid card, which has on it a time track, which is effectively a game turn marker, kind of. It's the equivalent of, in this game at least. And then you have the really important casualty track here as well. Now, we talked a lot about how you score victory points, or determine victory level is what it's called. So in Mission 1, for example, it says here, the victory level, if there is 0 through 35 points, German victory. If it's 36 through 45 points at the end of the game, it's a draw. And if there's 46 plus points, it's an American victory. And the victory level is determined by the amount of time in minutes plus the casualty track number, and we'll get there in a second, plus in some missions there's points for having different objectives. But in this, to start you off, you've got basically this and this to worry about. So the casualty track has basically 2 markers on it. It has the casualty differential limit for this is an American one and a German one. And you'll notice that the track is a pendulum that swings, has 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way out to 8 on both ends, and it says attacker and defender. So it's not nationality based. The markers are nationality based because in some scenarios the German's going to be the defender and they're going to switch round. Why that's important is for the attacker there's positive numbers. So if the casualty differential is 2 for the attacker, as in the attacker's taken 2 casualties more than the defender, then this number here, the 6, this is what the very small subscript here, the 6. That's what's going to be added to the time. So say I'm at 35 points. After 35 minutes, I've taken 2 more casualties. 35 plus 6. That's going to put me right at 41. And if we remember back on here, 41 is a draw in that 36 through 45 range on here. So that's very bad. So towards the end of the game, it's incumbent upon the attacker to inflict more losses. So for example, if the casualty marker, instead of being 2 on their side, it was 2 on our side. If it was 2 on the defender's side, it's a -6. Well, 35 add -6 is 29. Well, 29 is a German victory. So not only do you need to do things quickly, because if you do the mission in 20 minutes, frankly, it doesn't matter how many casualties you take, you're going to be in a good spot. But if you do it quickly and you can keep your losses down, that's how the attacker is going to win a game typically. Now, doing that's very risky, because to do something quickly, you might have to take more chances or gamble more or take more risks that you wouldn't normally, and those typically, if they don't go well, incur more casualties. So there's some really neat interplay just in how you approach these games. Movement-wise and kind of initiative-wise, the game and each mission will tell you who has the initiative to start with, and usually one of the 2 sides will also have an initiative modifier. Typically, it's the attacker, because if the attacker's on the front foot trying to get something done, they're kind of going out doing it. Defender's playing slightly more reactionarily. So in this starting mission, the German player starts with the initiative, but every subsequent turn, what they're going to do is they're going to roll a die and add 2. So I rolled a 6, 7, 8. And that's purely based, the scenario says, +2 to the Germans. The American player is going to roll, and they rolled an 8 as well. Well, that's a very unique situation. In that instance, it's a tie. And when there is a tie in initiative, if it's a tied even number, then the allies get the initiative. If it's a tied odd number, then the Germans get it. It's one of those two. It might be flipped. It never occurred in our game, but tie-in initiative's kind of cool that way, that it's not just a straight tiebreaker. It's tied every other number for the faction. But typically one side would win, whoever gets the higher number, and they gain the initiative. So it might flip to the Allied side if the Allies won it. It might be the Germans if the Germans win it. What that means is the initiative player is the active player. And the entire round will be played as the active player doing things and the kind of the reaction player reacting. So it's not, I'm going to activate all my guys and you're going to activate all your guys. That is not how the initiative works. Well, I'm going to remove these control markers just so we can kind of see it a little bit better. So we'll take a quick look at some of the units here as well. So here's a couple of German units. They're really nice looking big counters. You can see at the bottom, in the middle of the counter, there's a little black circle. And in that circle is a white number. Now the black circle means that they belong to, I think, a second company. And the white number means it's second platoon or third platoon respectively within that company. I think the game comes with 2 infantry companies, each with 3 platoons. Now, there's a number of support weapons as well, which are unassigned. You assign those to whichever platoons they're attached to, and your scenario will tell you what you get. Some support weapons from battalion will be like a Panther tank, or Panzerschrecks, things like that. There's a lot of different stuff in the game as well that you'd expect from combined arms and a tactical style. But the platoon differentiation is very important. It's a platoon level game in the sense that I, as the active player, as the Germans, move these back here to 4 and 2 where they're supposed to be. I'm going to activate one and only one of my platoons. Now, it is possible there's a special coordination roll that you can make, and that can allow you to activate 2 platoons together, which in some of the bigger games, that's very, very important that you might be able to do that. And we'll kind of go through a little bit why that's very important. But to kind of start with, I'm going to choose either third platoon or second platoon to activate. Well, I'm going to activate second platoon. Second platoon has 2 little sections over here, and they have 2 squads over here. These 2 sections are the equivalent of 1 squad. Now, one of my squads is disrupted. He's got this red line marker on him, and he does not have an attack value on his disrupted side. Let me show you here. So the small arms is the green value in the bottom left-hand corner. The disrupted one does not have that number present. They cannot attack when they're disrupted. So all he is going to do is he is going to attempt to kind of to recover himself. So he's got, in the bottom right hand, he's got this 6. That's his cohesion number. It's not a morale number, it's a cohesion number because it does a few other things, but it serves that same purpose. So I need to roll a 6 or less in order to be able to recover them, and they can flip back over to their usable side. Now, because I have second platoon's platoon leader stacked with them, he gives a +1 to that roll, or a -1. So I rolled a 6, which would have been a success anyway because it's equal to or less than. With the -1 from my leader, it's a 5, so I recover them. That's all they do. That's literally, you take 1 action. And then this guy is pretty much out of range of anyone that he could do anything to, and I don't necessarily want to kind of run him up the board or anything like that. So he might just kind of sit where he is, or he might advance so that 3rd platoon can vacate some of these buildings. So he's going to advance. When you're the active player, there's no movement factors printed on the units. When you're the active player, you get 3 movement points, or you can move 2 hexes, depending on which one of those you might be able to utilize better. As the reaction player, you get 2 movement points, or you can move 1 hex. So initiative is really important if you're trying to maneuver and move somewhere on the board. In this instance, he's going to move 3 movement points. Through kind of plain terrain, it's just 1 apiece, so he can go 1, 2. And then he can move into this building, just costs 1 movement point. So he's going to join some of these guys here, who are then going to leave when it's their activation. Then I've got these 2 sections, and they are going to they're going to move into this building. 1, 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark them with this maneuver action, okay? And that's going to be important, just as a mnemonic, just to remember that they moved. And you'll see why here in just a second. So that's all of 2nd platoon as activations. At that point, I say to the reaction player, would you like to react to anything that I did? And they can choose from any of their units who are in line of sight and of any of those 2nd platooners and can react to them. And what they can't do is I can't say, oh, I'd like to reaction fire against this guy out in the open from 3rd platoon. Well, you can't do that. That's not part of the rules. I can react, if I want to the guys from 2nd platoon that moved. Again, you don't have to as the reaction player. You can hold off to see I might make a move and expose myself even more. What we will do is these guys hold up in the church here. They're going to reaction fire against these 2nd platooners who just ran into the building. So they're gonna take a shot. Now, to take a shot, I declare that I'm doing that, and I calculate it. So he has a 1 little green small arms value. So he's got 1 point, and then we add to that a list of modifiers. And the small arms modifiers are on this nice play aid chart here. And the first thing we look at is range. So the little superscript next to my small arms fire 1 is an 8. That's my maximum range. So I consult this part of the range chart part of the modifier. So I look at the 8 column, and if I'm 2 spaces away, 1 or 2 spaces away, there is a 0 modifier. Oh, let's get that jump. Any further than that, and I'd start taking negatives. So there's no modifier for range, which is nice. I'm not splitting fire. It's possible to shoot 2 targets, but you start taking heavy negatives from that. Motion firer from current or adjacent hex. That is not the case. That's like if you were doing like shoot and scoot with a tank, not the case. If there were smoke markers, you take negatives in between. The hex doesn't contain a friendly vehicle that I have to shoot around. I'm not suppressed. I'm not regrouping. This hasn't been obscured in any way. They're not concealed. Now, there's also some flanking fire, which that's not the case here. Target density. If there's more than 4 steps of combat units in a hex, you get positive modifiers. It's easier to hit someone because there's a bunch of guys there. Now, the other modifiers, did the target maneuver within 2 hexes? So the target ended their maneuver within 2 hexes of me. So that's actually a positive modifier for myself, which is very good. And then there's a terrain effects modifier. So I'm 1 minus 0 for range. I'm plus 1 because they moved. So currently I'm at a 2. However, they moved into a building, and the building is a wooden building, and there is a -2 terrain effects modifier. So we're going to go with -2. So 2 minus 2 is a 0. So what I do is I just put this 0 counter next to this stack. This is my fire attack. This is what I do. I don't resolve it at the moment, though. What you do is you do all the activations of everyone, and then you just resolve all your fire attacks. Because he might be sat in that nice building now, but I was shooting him as he was running into the building, which is why you get a modifier for someone having moved. It's really neat that it takes that into account. It's a really neat part of this game. Then, these guys aren't going to react because they have that 8 range, and it would start being a negative number, which isn't worth it at the moment. So the reacting player declines to react to anything else. Now what's going to happen is third platoon, which is these guys, are going to move or attack. So they're going to lay down a base of fire against the church, which is probably going to be a waste of time because the church is very heavily fortified. But they'll do it anyway. So these guys have a range of 10 and 12 respectively, and this is 4 hexes away. So both the 10 and the 12, if you're 4 hexes away, you take a -1 DRM. -1 DRM. So 1 for the intrinsic value printed on their counter, -1 for range, and then the building is a minus. This one's a -3 because it's a concrete building, or a stone building. -3. Yikes! So I would give them this -3 counter, and that's our MG32 is doing that, and our infantry squad's doing the same thing. So there's going to be two attacks made against these guys at -3. They're decent odds of surviving this. These guys are going to move off the road. They're going to move 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3, so that they can take control of this building for our victory points. And then our platoon leader and our infantry squad are going to... What are they going to do? They are going to go 1, 2. They're going to move over here in preparation to assault the church next turn. That's what they're going to do. Now, having activated my other platoon, I ask the reaction player again, would you like to react? And then they say, well, yeah, I would. I'd like to react against these guys. Oof, we might split our fire here. Yikes. Because this is pretty nice that they're out in the open like that. Gosh. So, we've got 2 separate units, so they can attack separately. So let's start with the 0 guy. He's going to attack here. So it's a 0, and at this range there's no negative. He moved out in the open, so I go to +1, and then it's -2 for him being in a building. So we're going to attack him at a -1. And 1 -1 is 0, -1 is -1. Yes, I believe that is the case. 1 Yes, okay. Now, that's for this guy, and I'll just kind of put him at the bottom of the stack. That's that guy attacking. This guy with a 1, he's going to attack these guys out in the open. Now, because they maneuvered more than 2 hexes away, they don't get that bonus from the maneuvering. So you just can take into range. So the range makes it -1 because they're more than 2 spaces away. So he's going to get his a 1. -1 is a 0. And there's no terrain modifiers here. So it's just a 0 against this stack. After having done all of that, you kind of declare everything's finished, I pass, I'm not going to react, you can't react. Everyone's done one thing, can't do any reactions or actions anymore. So then you get to the fire resolution phase, and you literally roll a die for each one of these. And it doesn't matter what order you do them in, because everything's kind of happening simultaneously. So we start with this one. The allied player rolls 1d10 minus 1. And they roll a 3. Now what you're trying to do is exceed the cohesion value, that green number in the bottom right-hand corner. We did not do that, so that attack was a miss. No big deal. Then this guy over here, he's going to incur a unmodified attack. Oof, yikes, that could be bad. And we rolled a 6, so we're going to consult here. And what you go against, if there's multiple guys in a stack, you go against the highest well-ordered cohesion value. Both of these are a 6, and we did not exceed it. We matched it, but you have to exceed it to do a hit. So that was very fortuitous for the Germans. They got away with a pretty gutsy maneuver there. Same thing with this guy. We're going to roll an unmodified die against that stack. And we roll a 7. And in this particular instance, we look at him. 7's greater than a 6. So he is going to be disrupted. And then we roll a die against everyone else in the stack to see if they get disrupted. And we roll greater than their cohesion value, so you can be disrupted as well. So these guys are basically pinned and won't be able to assault next time. So that was a good defensive fire from the Americans there. And then we've got this incoming fire against these guys. This is kind of a pot shot. We're just hoping to roll at 10, basically. So we're going to roll 2 dice, needing both at -3. And we roll 2 7s, which get modified to 4s. 4 is not greater than 5, so our bullets just bounce off of the stone church. Pew pew. After having done that, if there was assaults, you'd do assaults. If there was off-board mortar fire, you'd do all that kind of stuff. Then you get to determining the time lapse. Well, how long did it take for me to run and shoot? I roll 1d10, and I rolled a 1. And you consult this little table down here. If you roll a 1 or a 2, that took only 2 minutes. So that was very good. It's good that it was quick. It's good for the attacker, at least. Now, if you're like me, and you roll a bunch of 10s, or 9s or 10s, you start adding 5 minutes. 1, 2, 3, and that starts pushing this marker up. And then it can escalate very, very quickly if you have a couple bad time-lapse rolls. After that, you do some cleanup, kind of remove some markers. These 2 sections, if they are under certain circumstances, they can combine into a squad, which just for certain purposes might help you out, might not. But that's what they do. And I'm going to keep them as sections, I think, because they're a bit stronger without. They're only 1-step units, but it is what it is. Whereas squads are 2-step units. But 2 single steps, I think, is going to be helpful for taking multiple objectives. And then you roll initiative, and you do it all again. It's a very fast playing game. Well, the initiative player, I do things, and then the reaction player says, well, I'm going to do a little bit here to react to that. And the most important part of reaction playing to me is laying down suppressing fire if and when you can. Because if you can wait and time your stuff well, you can lay down some attacks on units, and then when they attack you, because they have these DRM markers on them, they are -1 when they attack you. And it's such a clean way of doing suppressing fire without being broken or clunky. If you're shooting at someone and you have a green marker on you, you're -1. It's so simple, but can be so effective at times. There's just some really neat aspects to it. And basically, you keep going until either someone exceeds. You can meet your casualty limit, that's fine. As soon as you exceed it, at the end of the round, you lose the game. So if you're exceeding it and you know using medics to heal guys and bring them back on, you can get away with that. But you keep going until the time and the casualties are too much for the attacker or whatever else the scenario dictates. So I know that's a lot. We didn't go over, assaulting is these little blue values. You stack a bunch of guys, calculate a number, and use a differential and roll. And there's a whole slew of results, which are usually, they go from very bad for the attacker to very, very bad for the defender. Things can get wild. So if you pick your assaults and do them well, they can be very, very bloody. But really neat game. What we'll do is I'll just wrap up here with a few final thoughts. So that was a look at the game. I had a blast playing this, honestly.
Yeah, and we ask ourselves all the time, was it fun? I'd say yes on this one, and I would play this, like if we didn't have to go, I would play this again.
Yes, and I would play it now.
Yes.
Like, it's not like, oh yeah, I'll play it.
Because we remember the rules, and it's like, play it now, and
it's,
yeah.
The DRM markers when you make fire attacks
is very cool.
Is such a neat system, because even though you're running around doing other stuff, it gives you some context for that shot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's a good term.
So many games, it's like, oh, I'm going to shoot you whilst you're, out in the open.
Yeah.
And then you get shot. And then, or you're out in the open, you run into cover, and then I can't hit you anymore.
Right.
Whereas this, if I shoot you out in the open, I get the really good modifier. You might run into cover, but I shot you whilst you were out in the open. It doesn't necessarily punish you for being out there. It just, because you do all these actions, and then you resolve all the firefights.
Yeah.
And it's just really fun doing that.
Yeah, it is
cool.
It is unique and different. I agree with you. I had a great time with this. The only thing I didn't like, and actually I did really well at it, but it is very dependent, I think, on rolling well.
Yeah.
And you can't practice rolling. You can't.
No.
But you've really got to be rolling 7s, 8, really, and it's 8, 9s, and 10s.
Ideally.
Because of the negatives you're going to incur from range and cover and having moved or being disrupted. I mean, all those elements or being suppressed. It does come down, but you got to remember it's a game.
Yep.
It's a game.
You got to have some randomizer.
Yeah.
It's either dice rolls or it's a deck of cards.
So it's still fun. I enjoyed it. Production value is awesome. I love these
good.
little the little maps. You're going to put them together to form a big map. But a game like Combat Commander, it's a static,
paper ones.
large map, which they're great too. But I really like these map cards. Lock and Load Tactical does this. Conflict of Heroes does the little map cards.
Yes.
So I like that.
Well, and the geomorphic, you can make however many billion scenarios you wanted, and you make your own.
Put every counter in the game.
They got an
like 7
expansion
maps
for this coming out as well.
They do. Airborne.
It's not as if they couldn't make a trillion more as well.
Well, they could add in Russians. They could add in
any
Commonwealth. I mean, this is Americans and Germans, right? So,
and it is like the most basic, like Panzer Grenadiers and American infantry, this, because the next expansion
is airborne.
It's airborne.
Yeah,
it's not even a new faction.
So you're gonna have Fallschirmjäger. You're gonna have American Airborne 82nd, and it's just gonna 101st. It's gonna be really cool. I'm excited about that.
There's so much you could do with this.
Yeah.
And for a game this fun, I would see that as a very strong possibility they will.
So one other comment I wanted to make: I interviewed Mike Denson, who's the designer, almost 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Put it up on the written blog, so if you're interested, go read that for a little more detail. And I remember him and I had a discussion beforehand, and I was like, I love Combat Commander. I'm not going to change my idea of that. I love Combat Commander. And he goes, Grant, I think once you play this, not you're going to not like Combat Commander, but it's just different.
It's very different.
And I still love Combat Commander. I will play that game at the drop of a hat, anytime. But this is really cool.
Yes.
This is a really cool game that I'm glad we got to play. I want to explore it some more, play some more. Frankly, this is going to be on my top 10 list, no doubt.
Yeah, it's a really, really good game.
Yeah.
It just provided something very different from what we have experienced in this tactical style of game.
Yeah.
So I had a great time with this. Appreciate you guys tuning in. So this has been our look at The Last 100 Yards from Mike Denson, published by GMT Games. And I've been Alexander from thePlayerSafe.com.
And I'm Grant.